it clearly bounced today. So after 1, 2, 3 days of just continuous thrashing, the market decided to give us a nice little bounce. This morning in my Instagram and TikTok videos, I said that I wanted to buy calls as close to 207.21 as possible, with a stop. I think I said 205, and that is exactly what happened. It friggin' what happened. It went to a low of 208 today, 208.03. And if you had bought in anywhere around this area as you saw it bounce back up with a stop there, that would have been amazing. And yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't alert that because I was out running errands and I couldn't do multiple things at the same time. But hopefully I'll be able to alert everything afterward. But yeah, anyway, so the IWM really bounced into huge resistance at this upward trend line. It reclaimed it a bit today. So now, if I'm a bear, right, you want another opportunity to get into short positions. So many people, especially once we got right here on the IWM to around 217.65, right? No, sorry, 217. Yeah, 217.65. The smartest play, especially after a friggin' huge bounce today, the smart play would be to go short against 217.65. So many people, you have to understand, are currently, they took profits on their longs and started to get short up here, right? So now is the time where many bulls are beginning to scale into shorts again. And like a really nice area to buy puts again would be around 220 to 221. If we can reclaim this level and still show some sort of bearish momentum after we pop back up, like maybe we could pop up and stall here a little bit. If these levels don't hold, that would be an amazing opportunity to buy puts. But for now we're just trading the levels. We reclaimed this trend line, so now let's see if we can remain above it. So one other thing is that 213.06 was a very important level that I alerted on Twitter during the day. I said, buy calls above it, buy puts below it. And if you had bought calls as it crossed above 213 today, yeah, you would still have made a lot of money. So yeah, so let's look at, yeah, one other thing before we continue is a few videos ago I said that it on the major indices, so the IWM, the SPY, and the QQQ, if we fall outside of the lower standard deviation, buying any sort of calls for 3 to 4 months out even has always worked for me. There's never been, it is 100% win rate for me currently. So buying calls if we're outside of the lower standard deviation, or buying puts if we're outside of the upper standard deviation on the Bollinger Bands, has been a surefire hit for me currently. So that's another thing that essentially happened. So yeah, so now let's see if this upward momentum can sustain itself. The MACD barely really moved today, which is a bullish sign, but what most likely will end up happening is we'll gap up a little bit tomorrow um, to potentially around these levels right here. And from here, that's when things will get really interesting. Will we trend back down to this lower trend line at around 217.50, or will we break up above, and then that's this would be the bottom, and then we can start moving upward again. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the coming days for the IWM, especially given that it is the most beaten down indices so far out of the major indices. So yeah, let's look at the SPY. So the SPY is currently holding really amazing support. Sorry. Yeah, so the downward support, I said that 384 to 385 needed to hold on the SPY. We ended up falling down to 383.90 and bouncing right back up. So we reclaimed this upper trend line from March, and everything seems bullish so far. These levels have been holding pretty well. We closed above the 20 exponential moving average. We closed above the 50 simple moving average, which is also another bullish sign. And let's go ahead and make the fib levels real quick. and we also closed above the 38.2% fib level at 380, 388.12. So that's another good sign. Um, yeah, so the SPY still looks bullish. These levels need to hold. And again, the MACD also looks extremely oversold. What might end up happening is, again, if this is a bearish move and we are in a corrective uh, situation here, what might end up happening is the SPY is going to retest tomorrow around 392. And again, over here is going to be the make or break area. If people want to load up back on shorts with a stop at 394, essentially, or will we test back on 389 on this upward on this trend line right here, and then bounce back upward? So it's pretty interesting to see what's going to happen in the market. Yeah, so now let's look at the Nasdaq. Actually, the Nasdaq had a very beautiful touch of the 61.8% fib level at 307.74. It had a low right below it at 307.39, and it bounced right back up. But the Nasdaq, this it still looks pretty garbage to me, but that's fine. So it reclaimed 310.90, which is a very important level to reclaim. We traded, pretty well today, given how weak everything else was the past few days. 310.90 needs to hold. Again, we're just trading the levels blindly. Instead of, regardless of how I feel about the market, or regardless of my sentiment, it's the best thing to do is just trade these levels blindly and leave the emotions out of it. So currently we're above 310.90. This still seems bullish for now, but we fell below this level, and let's see if this breakdown here was just a little false breakdown, and let's see if this inverted head and shoulders pattern still maintains itself. If not, then this is going to be the level that people are going to look at. And if this breaks again, if today's low breaks on the Nasdaq, then I really don't think that this inverted head and shoulders pattern is actually a valid pattern. But let's see what happens. Crude oil had a bit of a green day today. It needs to hold 57.17. If that falls, then that would look very bad for the overall market. So the last time we had a huge downward move, which was back in the end of February, early March, crude oil, it was still doing very, very well. It had a huge uptrend that was going on. So usually when oil is actually doing very, very well, it's not that likely that the stock market and equities and etc. would do bad as well. So the fact that crude oil still looked extremely bullish during the last fall at the end of February and March, we were still very bullish on crude oil. So I didn't think that the SPY would fall, right? So that was a very good bottom, and we could key off of the fact that crude oil was still bullish. But now crude oil is in, it's in corrective territory because we made such an abrupt move upward. Many people are starting to take profits. So these levels really need to hold. If crude oil begins to fall even further, then these moves in the SPY and the IWM, especially today, a lot of these moves are just dead cat bounces. Essentially, all of the people that were short just wanted to take profits and reload up on shorts. So we're keying off of crude oil to see what happens there. It's still extremely oversold on the MACD. There's still some room to go, but it barely really. It had a pretty big move, but it fell right back down. So it's not looking too good. We could see how the trend is for the momentum. So it would need to really break. It would need to break above 57. It would need to break above 60, really, for it to become bullish again. 61. Sorry, it would need to break above 61 for it to really become bullish again. So this trend line is going to be something that we're going to be watching very closely on crude oil. If it doesn't reclaim this and the market still looks choppy, then we should be leaning short So yeah, that's currently what's going on. The U.S. 10-year yield had a red. No, it had a. Yeah, no, it bounced today. This is later in the day after, but no, it had a green day today. Um, and then as I'm recording, it's currently red. But yeah, so Bitcoin, it retested 50,000. It broke through these levels of support. It's still extremely oversold on the MACD, and many people are still saying that this is a bottom. We're sitting on the 50 SMA on Bitcoin, and if we look at the past history of this entire uptrend, it hasn't fell below the 50 SMA, right? It's never closed below the 50 SMA in the past few months. So since October. So this is a pretty bullish situation. We could buy the dip. This is a pretty good dip buying opportunity potentially. But if 50,000 breaks, if this 61.8% fib level at 50,189 breaks, then it might overshoot down and it could retest maybe 48. That's another area that many people are looking at, 48,000. So yeah, it's just a matter of holding enough money so that when these dips do happen, you have enough money to load up and not get shaken out by these market makers. Okay, the dollar though, we were looking at the dollar yesterday. It was testing the 200 SMA. Today it crossed above the 200 simple moving average and like had it as support, and it almost hit 93. So 93 is another level that many people are looking at for the dollar. It's extremely bullish. Um, it's an extremely bullish pattern, and I think that also the strong dollar is tied into what Biden was saying today about the his remarks on China. He was saying that he wouldn't allow China to become the number one uh, economy in the world. So that would be another factor of why the dollar would become stronger today. So yeah, there goes the analysis for the day on the market. Really, these levels just need to hold. We're just taking it one day at a time. But so far, things look bullish. There might be a bit of a gap up tomorrow, potentially. But if there isn't, and we fail at these levels of resistance, then, it's time to look to go short against these levels of support, this trend line essentially, and go short. And if it crosses above it, we're out of our shorts. But yeah, tomorrow is going to be really interesting. Tomorrow and Monday, things are going to get really, really interesting. So yeah, that's basically it. Now we're going to go over the stocks that you guys wanted me to go over in the comment section. So, to everyone that commented specific stocks that you guys wanted me to go over, just go ahead and drop a comment in this video. Whatever stock you want me to go over, I'll go over, and yeah, I'll give you the analysis on it. So this is Apple, right? Apple failed at a specific resistance point, which we were looking at as support for the past few weeks. It closed basically exactly at it. It overshot above for a little bit, but then it closed exactly at it, which is extremely bearish. And that's another reason why I was saying that tech looked garbage, because, on a day like this, it should have closed above this trend line, consolidated a bit, and then moved upward. 310.90 held for the Qs, but this level of support did not hold for Apple, which is a negative sign for the tech industry in general, which is also a negative sign for the S&P 500. Okay, so Apple needs to reclaim this trend line, essentially, where it closed. So it needs to reclaim tomorrow. It would need to reclaim 120.75. Really, it needs to reclaim that, and you can essentially just long above it, short below that, and this is the trend line essentially. If it falls below, then another major level of support on Apple would be 118.42. If it breaks that, then yeah, good luck. It would be down from there. But yeah, hopefully it doesn't get there. If this breaks, if we start testing this trend line, the entire market would be much lower. So let's hope that this doesn't happen. Yeah, GameStop. GameStop broke its downward trend from March. Okay, so if we made a trend line from March 10th all the way downward, today was the first day that it broke above. Okay, so it's very important for GameStop to hold above 157. Okay, and at that point, it would have retested this downward momentum trend line. And if it can retest that at 157 and then bounce back above that, that would be very, very bullish. Also, GameStop, the MACD is extremely oversold. And when the MACD is oversold, it means that there's potential for it to move upward. This MACD line was not curved upward at the beginning of today. So what algorithms and funds and everyone saw was we're at an extremely decent level of support. We're sitting above the 50 moving average today, right? We're sitting above the 78.6% fib level at 105. So there's many levels of support right here, right? And the MACD was extremely oversold. It hadn't curled up. It was flat, right? So that was an extremely good buying opportunity for everybody. That's why they brought it up so abruptly today. And now the key level of resistance for GameStop would be 193.50. If we can trade above 193.50 and we broke this downward momentum, the sky's the limit. GameStop to the moon. Boom, baby. But yeah, let's see what happens. That's a really good sign that GameStop broke this downward momentum, especially after earnings. So that's good. And it filled the gap to 177.50. There was a gap to fill, and it filled it. So that's another good sign. But the only caveat is that it closed below the 20 exponential moving average, and many people would be looking to go short against basically 200. So, I'd be careful. But GameStop is GameStop. If we broke above this momentum, sky's the limit. So yeah, these are the important levels to look at: 157 and this downward trend line. So yeah, let's see what happens. So for Sunrun is at an extremely interesting level of support as well. We can see that this trend line was created from back in March. And then we can see this level of support of 49.20 was an extremely important level of support as well. So we're at multiple levels of support here. 49.36, sorry. So the 61.8% fib level is at 49.94. So there were multiple reasons to go long Sunrun today, right? Multiple decent levels of support. Fib levels right below, an uptrend. We closed above the uptrend. So if you want to be really, really tight on this trade, you can sell it if it crosses below. If you have extra, guts, you could always just have a stop loss below 50. And, but in general, all in all, it seems like if this trend line holds, it can retest, all of these levels up here, 60 plus. So yeah, and let's just see if this can hold. The MACD is crossing below the line, but it seems like it closed in a bullish manner. So the fact that the MACD is giving some sort of a bearish signal, but the price remained sort of bullish today, that's a good sign. So let's see if this maintains itself. If not, then it can fall back down to like 49.30. And then from here, the MACD would be oversold, right? And then it would start giving more potential room for it to cross upward. After it falls down here, we could start moving upward after that. So let's see if that happens on Sunrun. But in general, I would just keep tight stop losses, and we crossed above and closed above this uptrend. So that's good. FUBO, this trend line from back in January 27th, I didn't even mean to, all I did was I tried to make a trend line from here, but it ended up connecting exactly on January 27th. So that is an extremely interesting correlation here. We closed, I think, right above it or right on it, right? So a few days ago, about a week ago, actually, we crossed above the momentum, which is why the next day we shot up above. But this wasn't sustainable because if we look at the MACD was extremely oversold at this point, and the price of FUBO didn't it didn't go as strong as, so when the MACD is extremely oversold like this, right? If you look at the MACD and the MACD is extremely oversold, what should happen with the price is the price should have shot up over here. The amount of overbought that the MACD became in comparison to the actual price was not a bullish move. It only crossed up over here, which is garbage. Okay, because if we look at what the MACD was on March 12th, right, versus March 2nd, right, it was the same level, but the price of FUBO was at 43. But then on March 12th, the price of FUBO was whatchamacallit, it was 33. So it's very, very bad. That's another reason why FUBO started falling even more. So you have to take into account the MACD and the overall trajectory and the momentum of the stock. What I think might happen on FUBO is, some important levels of support are 23.19, right? And then if 23.19 doesn't hold, then 20.39 should hold. At this point, it would correlate very closely to the 200 simple moving average, and then the MACD would be extremely oversold. We would have fell so much that a bounce would sort of just be inevitable, and then we can see a move upward, a sharp move upward. So yeah, I'd be very careful and I'd be wary. We're still trending on this downward momentum. This needs to bounce. If this doesn't bounce, then these support levels are going to be touched next on FUBO. UWMC looks pretty decent as well. It closed above its uptrend since February 26th. The MACD is oversold, and we closed above it. If this fails, then you're looking at 757. So you could wait to see if we potentially break this, and then try to buy close to 757, and then have a stop loss right below it. And then your target would be, the upper nines. So, but it's a good sign that we closed above this trend line. Let's see if the market in general is green tomorrow. If the market in general is green tomorrow, then this is going to bounce. If not, then this is almost certainly going to break. So let's see what happens. But this is the important level right here, this trend line. And then basically, if you want to buy right now, if I bought at the close, sorry, if I bought at the close, I would have a stop for 7.99. Anything below 7.99, I would sell. But yeah, if you want to be more lax with it, you can have a stop below 7.57. If that breaks, then it's going to vomit, most likely. But yeah, there's my analysis on that. Another thing is that there's a lot of resistance upward. The 10 simple moving average is crossing below the 20 exponential moving average, which isn't usually a bullish sign. If we look at the past time that happened, the stock fell very, very heavily. The black line is the 10 simple moving average, and this line is the 20 EMA. It crossed below it, and the price ended up falling. So let's see if that happens again. Nokia, again, it's at very interesting levels of support at 385, and then the lower level is 375. These levels need to hold, really. And then if it can hold these levels, then this downward momentum can break. It's almost exactly in correlation with the 10 simple moving average. So if these levels hold on Nokia, then the 10 simple moving average will be the upward target, which is at 409. So if that can break, then the next target would be the 50 and the 200. Wow, okay. The 50 simple moving average and the 200 simple moving average are right next to each other. So it looks like the 50 is about to cross below the 200, which is a very bearish sign. But if it bounces right above it, and if we see a green day tomorrow in Nokia, it might bounce off of it. So yeah, it's a toss up at this moment. So let's see what happens on Nokia. Solely, Soliton closed above the uptrend, but right below the 10 simple moving average. It needs to hold 1627, which is a 38.2% fib level. If that doesn't hold, then it can fall all the way to 1545 and then 1523. So one thing to take into consideration is that I took this fib level from the recent low from March 5th to the high of March 23rd, right? So we're currently at in between the 50 and the 38.2% fib level. But if we take a fib level from the the lows from January 6th to February 22nd, we can see that we shot below the 50 moving average, it's 50 fib level, and we tested the 61.8. So if we cross below the 50 currently, right? I'm going to erase this, okay? So we just saw that on that other fib, we broke below the 50. If we break below the 50 here, we can end up testing somewhere between 1523 and 1419. So I'd be very careful. That same thing happened. We were extremely oversold. So everyone thought, yeah, we're oversold. We're going to see a bounce. That's what everyone thought right here. We were riding the 20 EMA and the MACD was extremely oversold. We are like, yep, we're definitely going to see a bounce. That's not what happened. We ended up gapping down and having a huge red day and then an even lower day the next day. So I'd be very careful on Soli. I'd just have tight stops. And yeah. All right, CCL. First of all, the chart and everything, it looks amazing, right? But we have to realize that on March 30th, there's earnings. And, I don't think anyone is going to be able to take any cruises until I think the news came out. Like the capacity would still remain like 25% until I think November. So yeah, you have to take into consideration that CCL might not have amazing earnings and can fall. But two bullish things that happened is that it closed above its upward trend line, so this support level held, right? And we also closed above 25.22, which is another important level of support. So we closed above both of those levels. The MACD is extremely oversold still. We could, again have a gap up. It looks like the price currently is gapping up, so we might have a gap up and then maybe test these levels right here above 27, and then that would be an interesting time because that's when the 10 simple moving average and the 20 EMA are both right above. So let's see if these levels hold. But it was, all in all, it was a very good day for CCL. Very, very bullish day. But again, you have to be careful because there's earnings on March 30th. And yeah, don't get caught being in a stock during earnings because the stock can just plummet. I'm going to show you how in a few minutes. Okay? So that's CCL. In general, CCL is just, it's a really good company to go long term because, if you just compare it to where it was before the pandemic, it was like 50. So that's still a 2x return from today, but you might have to hold for a very, very long time. So yeah, but in general, it looked like it had a pretty bullish close today. CVU had a very bullish close today as well. Very similar to a lot of these stocks. They're all closing really above the momentum, and it needs to hold. It needs to hold 437 in my opinion. If it doesn't hold 437, oh, and it had earnings today, so that's pretty interesting. The lower level of support would be 411. The level that it needs to cross above is 450. If it can hold above 450, then we can easily see, potentially even $5. So that's CVU. Huge, very, very interesting time for huge. It was at multiple beautiful levels of support. The MACD was extremely oversold. It looks like it barely even moved today, which is another important factor. And we're about to cross above this, downward trend line, similar to how we saw it on the other stock on GameStop. So if we can cross above this, we can have a really big day tomorrow. So it would need to cross above what is this? 196. It would need to cross above 196, and then potentially we can see it cross into $2. But it's not that great of a risk reward. Um, but yeah, no. In general, you can buy this and keep like a tight stop. Maybe trade it for momentum into tomorrow. Could potentially be a very good play on huge. MNKD had a very had a very bullish move today, which is very good. It closed above the 10 simple. Oh, no, yeah, it closed above the 10 simple moving average. We can see that it broke this downward trajectory of momentum, and the MACD moved up. So now it's in like bullish territory. Let's see if it can continue moving up tomorrow. Um, yeah, so the levels that would need to hold for it to maintain bullish, in my opinion, would be 351. 351 is this low of March 19th. If it can stay above 351 and hold some sort of support, even above 340, really, if it can hold some sort of support here, then it has more room to go upward. If not, then 314 needs to hold. If 314 doesn't hold, then yeah, then it doesn't really look too good for MNKD. MDGS. MDGS, it had a very good day. It bounced off of yesterday's low, which was support for a very long time, which was at 190. So it was a really good time to buy MDGS, but it had earnings today. I'm not sure if it's after hours or tomorrow morning, but today was if there wasn't any earnings, today was a really good day to buy. It needs to cross above 212, really. And then if it crosses above 212, then there's potential for it to fill this gap, this overhead gap between 225 and 228. There's a 3-cent gap that needs to be filled. And if we can have another bullish day or two on MDGS, then this upward gap can potentially be filled. So yeah, there's my analysis on all the stocks that you guys wanted me to go over. There's my analysis on the stock market in general today. If you liked the video, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe to my channel. If you want me to do technical analysis on anything, go ahead and drop it in the comments of this video below, and I'll go ahead and do that technical analysis for you. Thank you so much for watching. That was a 32-minute video. Wow. Okay, cool. Have a good one.